My name's Doug Gibson. I'm the executive director and principal scientist for Nature Collective, and we want to give you an update on a project that's near and dear to your hearts and your homes. But now I realize I have to move this on my own. So, all right. So, sorry. So Nature Collective has been inspiring conservation actions across North County, San Diego, and beyond. Since 1987, we were formerly known as the Centinela Lagoon Conservancy, and it was a small group of passionate volunteer community members that got together to form what turned into now Nature Collective. With that same passion, we have grown to inspire conservation action across North County, San Diego, and beyond throughout San Diego County. We exist to drive a passion for nature for all. So Nature Collective, again, being founded in this root of one system, we try to grow to protect other systems, riparian streams throughout our existence. We think inclusively and diversively when serving those devoid of nature, those who remember nature and want to get back to it, and those that have an affinity for nature. Our vision is a world where everyone has a passion for nature to connect with it, experience it, and help protect it. Thus our tagline, connect, experience, and protect. We believe that people discover nature, they will protect it, and at the end of it, value everything that it has to offer. We buy land, we receive conservation easements so that we open space and protect future generations. Our most recent land acquisition includes a 3-acre Harbaugh Seaside Trails, which probably many of you have gone through, and the 77-acre Lake Drive property that we've been working on and at for the last couple of years. We connect and engage people with the land, its ecosystem, and its wildlife, and its services through providing experiences like educational field trips, events, tours, and volunteer opportunities to drive a curiosity and an interest in nature. We have restored a lot of property, and it's not just Centinela Lagoon, but at the Centinela Lagoon Ecological Reserve, we have restored habitat to provide healthier waters, greater wildlife diversity, and we are restoring these ecosystems so that wildlife and people can thrive. We finished one of our largest lagoon restoration projects just a couple of years ago, and it is now sort of a milestone in California that allows us to preserve this wetland ecosystem for not only future generations, but to actually provide species composition that will help provide our marine protected areas right offshore. It's a nursery. It allows for those species to come in and grow and then go out as we move forward. as the health of that moves forward. So this gives you a little picture of, where we have been in Santa Leo Lagoon and its watershed, at least a little bit. You see on the coastline, we've built the coastal dune system. We did the restoration of the tidal estuary. We've done upland and transitional areas sort of in this upland terrace and this upland terrace, and then up through the riparian areas, which is part of the project that we're talking about now. And then there's even one up further. So that would be this one. So Lake Valserino, which is where a lot of people, I hope on the call are from. These are areas that we're really interested in maintaining and improving the wildlife habitat. So the grant that we've currently received and that is underway is focused on 2 different species. As you can see, they're very different species. They're very different in size. Elise Bill's Vario is about the size of half an ear of the mule deer, but they still exist in the same habitat. They are in this riparian area, and we want to make sure that we can create habitat structures throughout the watershed so that they both can exist. So this is what we were faced with. This is Lake Valserino, and basically summing it up, the purple is all invasive plant species. It could be trees, it could be a grass that we call a rundo, and we'll get into that. But we wanted to start building this new habitat structure that really supported our native species in this area. This is another area. It's just a little bit east of La Bajada Bridge. Right here, this bridge system is La Bajada Bridge. And then these are 2 parcels that we own. And we've been working a long time to get rid of the eucalyptus, the acacia, and other plant species in this area so that we could build this area, but not only for the plant species to build a habitat, but also for a wildlife corridor for the mule deer. And then this property here is one of the primary entrance points for the lagoon. There's a big trail system that starts here. This is La Aria Creek that comes down up here, but most people enter in on this trail system. And so we've been working on this to remove a multitude of species that have been taking it over because their invasiveness, and our ability to get at it now will help those species in the future in terms of climate change and even sea level rise. The slide 2 slides ago, we were above this line, which was La Bajada Bridge. This is what's happening below it. And so we've been working on this site for a very long time, removing several eucalyptus populations as well. As well as other species that have been invading the lagoon. So we've been working really hard to get this as a transitional area where the mule deer can come up and down, and we make sure that we're accomplishing not only that habitat, but building this Leesville's Vireo habitat, which is really specific. So they need certain habitat types that are cover the stream bed, and we've done a good job at making sure that we're making sure that happens. So giving you a little picture of it. So, here's a part of that creek bed. You can see that we have, pretty good coverage. We have canopy, we have what we call subshrubs, and then we have an herbaceous layer. But when we get down to looking at what some of those species are arundo, which is giant reed, which is a really bad invasive species. We have eucalyptus. We have some other, it's not even a palm, but some other species that shouldn't be there that we're trying to look at and how we get rid of them and replace them with native species. This is a shot of, we have sycamores and we have eucalyptus. We have a lot of species sort of in this, and it all sort of looks the same, but it's not. We're trying to remove some of these eucalyptus trees so that we can get some of these larger sycamores and cottonwoods and other species to grow as a result of that. And what this does is it helps us reduce that fire resilience of these areas. I mean, when we have invasive plants that have high oil content, it increases the amount of risk that these corridors have. Our goal is to at least reduce some of that risk, improve the habitat for native species, and then move forward. So I think a lot of people are here for this little orange outline area, which was Lake Valserino. And I'm not sure how many people online were here when it used to be a lake. But once that dam burst, we had a massive invasion of eucalyptus trees, and arundo, donax is the scientific name of giant reed, to take over and really change the fire and flooding regime of the entire area. So we've been working not only with the Valserino community over here, but the Brookside community over on the other side, to try to make sure that we're looking at flooding and fire as an issue, and the Olivenhain Fire District, making sure that we're helping them out in this as well. So when we go out and look at invasive plants, how do we actually analyze how we get rid of them? Some of them we're hand pulling, and I think that's really important. We don't have a one solution issue. We look at every species differently, and some can be just pulled up out of the ground. Some we have to mow. Some we cut the stumps off, and then some we cut and then we dab them with an application that makes us, which makes that species stop. And then we do spot applications. Arundo is one of those, and I got a couple pictures coming up that show what you would think as completely dead arundo, but it's not. And this is what we're faced against. We have Mexican fan palms, which are a nightmare in a fire situation, Canary Island palms, eucalyptus, in this one picture, even though it seems like it's native, but it's not. It just really is not our native habitat. Our bird species and our monitoring programs show that this does not have the capacity to help our native bird species, especially the Leisbell's varia. This is what it looks like when you're looking straight at a eucalyptus grove and a rundo grove. There's really no room for our native species, even though there's lots of vegetation there. It's just something that we're not going to see. So we end up taking a lot of this down, and it's very hard work. It's a lot of chainsaw work and a lot of chipping. But once we get it down, we can revegetate that area and turn it back into a very prosperous native habitat. So this is just a picture of our chipper going to town on these fronds. This is a rundo. We in the state to date, we've spent almost $45 million in Southern California trying to remove this grass. So this grass up to this point is probably 25 feet, 30 feet tall. And when a flood comes down in certain situations like San Luis Rey, the whole thing, the whole population of that moves downstream, and it has the ability to actually upend bridges and take out infrastructure. So it's really important that we look at this as a major impact to our infrastructure. Here we are with some other Mexican fan palms and Canary Island palms that are starting. I mean, this is very small, but that's how they do. If you don't get at them soon, then they will grow into larger species and they will attract the nuisance species that they do, which are rats and other species that are really attuned to these disruptive type of areas. So here's an area that we had treated already, and sometimes we mow areas, like we said. Our process sometimes is we go in and we mow areas first, and then we let it regrow, and we hit it when it's like just regrowing, and that allows us the ability to come back in the next season and replant, or in the same season. Eucalyptus are not easy. I mean, obviously, if you live in this area, you know that we have incredibly large eucalyptus trees. They've all sort of spawned off of a few different species that were planted along the corridor, and they kept growing, and nobody really, this was not part of the original train track system that Rancho Santa Fe or UCSD plantations were planted. These are plants that came as a result of that, where people planted them next to their property and then they just spread. But this is what it takes to sort of get rid of them. So yeah, we can denude an entire area of those species, go through and completely remove everything, and then we chip it, and it's really been, I found it really useful to use that mulch within that same area. So we lay it down. We don't have to remove all the biomass, which can be really expensive, that we now are planting straight through and putting plants in the ground and making sure that it's maintaining some water and growing really well. So this is sort of where we're at today, at least with Lake Valsereno. This is one of the sort of invasive treatments that we're working on. We worked a little bit over here, giving us access. We know that there's a rundo on, we know that there's a rundo on this side. We'll be getting to that, but we're still trying to get the majority of the species that we feel have an impact to the downstream flow. So we've already worked up in this area. It's pretty clear there's still some arundo now that is regrowing. You can see the eucalyptus here. So, I mean, it's really easy to see what we have to do. We do not have the funding to get everything. So we're really focusing on creating corridors for species that we can look at in the coming time. But everything has to follow restoration. And so that means, you know, putting in plants, making sure that those plants have water, which is very critical in a lot of the areas. If it's in the stream bed or within an area where we know that there's a low water table, then that's no problem. But most of the areas are up a little bit higher and we have to bring in water. Here's one of our water table, one of our water hoses that allows us to bring in water to these plants we've just planted. So after a year, sometimes you can see that the plants, these are sycamores that have already grown well over 10 feet tall. And we can go through there and just now know, here's something we treated. This is obviously a Canary Island palm that was cut down and shipped and then brought all over this area, that we now have native plants growing there that will support our native habitat. Here's another picture of a site that we've removed everything and now have revegetated, and now we're seeing its growth in a very quick time. We are very limited to the timing, our approach, our access, what we do with biomass, and obviously noise. I mean, the community is really important, but we also are restricted by nesting seasons of endangered species, the leaf-bill's vireo, the same thing we're trying to protect. We can only work during certain periods. So basically the end of September to February, you know, we only have a very short window. And now if it rains a lot, we can't go out. So we're working with not only the community, but with the weather and the hydrology of the areas that we're working in. But we have a lot of partners and we've been working with them for quite some time to allow us to move this project forward. California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the county, but really the funding source has really come from the Wildlife Conservation Board that has allowed us the opportunity to do these types of projects. So, you know, as an organization that is a nonprofit, we write grants, and we do get large grants from those state and federal agencies. Most of the money that comes through for us comes from our donors. We could not write the grants that we write if we did not have the funding that allowed us to write those grants beforehand, before funding was given, because there's no guarantee, and we've missed out on grants before, but our donors have stepped up and helped us, get to the end point where we actually get to a project. All right, so that was a very quick and dirty what we're doing this year. But if there are questions relating to what our work project is this year, what we plan to do or how we're doing it, we entertain all questions. And I know somebody's monitoring the chat, so you can either do it through the Q&A or the chat. I'm not seeing any questions. My email was up there, so if anybody had any here. My email's there. If you have any questions or want clarification on what we're doing this year, this is the second year of this program, so we're really working towards achieving this at least within 3 years. 3 years would be great. I'm guessing it might be 4. We've had some really unique rain events, as you're all aware. We might want to try to spread some of this project out over a little bit longer period, but you're more than welcome to reach out to me, email me, let me know, and we can go from there. Okay, so I see a question. Is the area available for people to visit? Well, if you live in Valserino, the community of Valserino, you probably are very aware of like the ways to get in there. There's really not a public trail system, so I'm not going to say yes, go ahead. But if you are living there, you sort of know the access points. You can go down probably that access road in the middle of the community and just look and see the efforts that we've been doing. These are it's a very large effort, and we know it's, the grant that we currently have is not nearly enough money. So we hope to go back to the state agencies and have them help us further this work that we're doing. Great question. Volunteering. So on this project, this is not a real big volunteering effort, but that doesn't mean that we don't have our own volunteering efforts. We have our own native plant nursery. We'll be creating actually a larger native plant nursery, and there will be plenty of efforts where people can come and volunteer to help grow plants and put them in the ground and then leave that legacy of those native plants. Good question, Andrew. Thanks, Chris. Hope you enjoy what you're seeing. The La Ria Trail work that's been done along Stonebridge and La Ria is amazing. The crews have done such an amazing job there, and the plants that have come up as a result of that are really it's inspiring. So thanks. So now there is an awesome question. So will the vegetation create a fire risk? So every plant creates a fire risk. The plants that we're planting are native and are used to being super saturated with water. Our entire creek system, not just along Escondido Creek, but along all of our creek systems in San Diego, used to be buffers to fire. So fires might come down and hit the creek system and then die out. They wouldn't transfer down. But because of all the invasive species, and very specifically arundo and eucalyptus species and the palms, they've actually become wicks, meaning they actually are transferring fire downstream when they shouldn't. They should be blocking them. So the plants that we are planting, they're not completely fire resistant, but I will say that they will help in putting traveling fires to a lesser level. Well, I would just say that everyone, like my email is there. I've been doing this a long time. We have a really good team involved in this. And if there are any questions that come up after the fact, like please get in touch with me and I'm happy to get back to you, let you know, where basically where we're at, what we're doing, why we're doing it. Because it's not just what we do. We're protecting and rebuilding habitat structure for certain endangered species and a mule deer population that we have. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that it's not just for that. It's really rebuilding this structure for the habitat so we can all understand, we can all like benefit from that and be protected as much as we can. Oh, palm. Okay, I see. What is the plan for removing palms and eucalyptus closest to the residents? Okay, so that's a great question. We started this project and met with many community members along the edge, and we set up a buffer because there were a lot of people that wanted to keep trees within a very close buffer to their house and some that didn't. And so we set up a buffer between the property line and where our project was happening. And now we're going to be sort of abiding by that to make sure that we're getting the habitat areas revegetated and removed interiorly of those areas we're working without impacting somebody's shade or somebody's trees that they've fallen in love with. Well, thank you, everyone, and I look forward to giving you an update next year. These are just really work plan updates as to, here's where we're at, here's what we're doing, and we're looking forward to continuing this. If we get a new grant, I look forward to informing you on what that grant obligations are and what we will be doing. We couldn't do this without the community. We couldn't do this without our donors. And so we appreciate each and every one of you for helping us get to where we're at.